Okay, let's get started. Can you hear me? Welcome. All right, looks like we got some people in here. Well, one person right now. We'll see if anybody else trickles in here, but I'll get started anyway. Welcome. This is DES243 Layout and Design. You guys are starting a new mod. My name is April Biss. I'll do my intro here in a second. So great to see you, and if you're listening to the recording, great to have you listening to the recording. This is important information that we go over every week. Like I like to tell my students all the time, is this is kind of the meat and potatoes behind the course. Listening to the lectures will definitely save you a lot of time. So definitely check that out. If you cannot make it live, listen to the recordings. I usually do demos. I do demos for every project, so it will clarify and hopefully save you time if you have any questions. So welcome to week 1 live lecture 1. We just have some intro information and some housekeeping to get started here. And I love to teach this class. Welcome, Shelley. My name, again, is April Biss. You could just call me by my first name. That's fine. Month of April. I am not born in April, though, so everybody always like, okay, so your birthday is in April. No, not necessarily. No, actually, I was named after my father, whose birthday is on Wednesday. So his birthday is in April. I was supposed to be a boy, and my parents had already 2 girls. I was supposed to be the boy, and I came out a girl. So I was supposed to be a junior, and since I am a girl, he said, well, since I can't name him after my namesake, we'll just name her after my birthday. So my birthday is actually in August. So anyway, welcome. Let's start the introductions here. Again, my name is April Biss, and just a little bit about me. If you have not had me as of yet, I have taught for IU for quite a while. I believe I'm almost up to 7 years here, so 6+ years in teaching in higher ed. I'm actually from Pittsburgh, PA. That's where I grew up pretty much all my life. And then I went to La Roche. Actually, they just changed their name to university, so it's La Roche University now. I went for my Bachelor of Science degree in graphic design for 4 years, and that was on ground. And right after that, I graduated. I got my first ad agency job, so I worked for an advertising agency soon after graduating. Worked there for about a year. A smaller ad agency, loved it, got a great amount of experience there. And then I ended up moving to Ohio, and I lived in Akron, Ohio, and I ended up getting another advertising agency job, and I worked there for almost 4 years. And then after that, I ended up getting into publication design. So I worked for a publication company. And soon after that, I moved to Tampa, Florida. So I only lived in Akron for 6 years. I moved to Tampa, Florida after that, after I got married. And I worked for several publication companies doing contractual work. So it was kind of remote out of my house. But I worked for 3 major magazines, publication work again. And why I'm saying this is because this class is pretty much what I did. Publication work. I loved it. I loved working there for all of those magazines. I worked for a health and wellness magazine in Florida. I worked for a style magazine in Florida, a luxury living magazine as well. So I loved it. And then that's whenever the real estate bubble crashed, and pretty much what everybody did, all of our advertisers, especially real estate people, pulled all of their advertising. So a lot of those magazines kind of diminished because of that. And I kind of went into teaching while I was doing some freelance. So I taught for Tampa College for my first time ever, and that was on ground. I taught for 2 years. I loved it, fell in love with teaching. And that kind of pushed me to get my Master's of Arts in graphic design. I ended up, their accreditation changed where I only had my bachelor's when I was teaching there. So they said, if you want to continue teaching, we need you to get your master's. Well, I was already thinking about doing that. So I went ahead and applied for SCAD for my master's, got into the program. The awesome program, by the way, and I did that all remote. And I like to tell you guys this because that's what you guys are doing everything online. And it is different than, you know, being in a classroom. So I had experience being an online student, just like you guys. So I did my master's. I got my master's in 2012. And then I immediately got my first teaching job online. So I do still design. So I teach and I design. So I kind of do that balance. I just finished up a book cover for an author recently. So, you know, it's just a great balance. I love teaching. I have about 20 years of working experience in the design industry. I can't believe how much, I'm dating myself, right? Yeah, so 20 years experience working in the design industry, about 6+ years of teaching in higher ed. I have my own design studio, which again, I work remotely. So wherever I move, it's nice. It's like a little freelance business I still do work for. My daughter, I have one daughter. Her name's Amelia May. That's her middle name. And she's turning 5 on the 24th. So her birthday is in April. We just had our birthday party this past weekend, so it was fun. And I have a puppy, a fur baby we just adopted in, I think it was Christmas time. So he's our little dash hound, a wiener dog. We love him to death. He's a great addition to the family. If you want to check out some of my work, there's my Behance link there. You can check out things I've worked on recently. And that's just a little bit about me. So let me know where you got, just type in the chat there where you guys are currently living. And I know, Odyssey, I've seen you before. And Shelly, I believe I had you too before in a class, correct? Not to call you guys out, but all of your names, obviously. It's so cool to have repeating students. Great. Yeah, it's exciting. I can't believe it's a new mod. This time has been flying by. And guess what, you guys? Okay, I thought so. I was gonna say your name looked really familiar. It snowed today in Pittsburgh. That's where I'm currently living now. It snowed, and let me tell you, I hope that's the last of it. Yep, it snowed today. Over the weekend it was 70 degrees. I had my air on, my AC on last night. All the windows shut because we had big storms come through, and then this morning it started snowing. Typical Pittsburgh weather. And then tomorrow's supposed to be 70 again, so some fun stuff. It's storming real bad. Where are you at, Odyssey, again? Oh, okay. Yeah, you guys always get the really bad storms. That humid air down there. Yeah, it's crazy. But no snow. I'm so tired of the snow. Hopefully that's the last of it. I know I ran a 5K last year during this same time, and I remember waking up to 3 or 4 inches of snow. So that's why people always say don't plant your flowers until the beginning of May. So craziness. All right, let's go for it here. There you go. Well, Shelly, I've lived in Ohio too, and I've gone through all 4 seasons in one, maybe 2 hours. I've seen snow, sunny, thunderstorm, rain, all in like 2 hours. Yeah, it's crazy. All right, so since we are going to be working a lot in InDesign, I just want to get your comfort level and experience based on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being a newbie, 5 being efficient. Just tell me, be honest, what your comfort level is in InDesign. All right, 5, good. And it's okay. I mean, if you don't really have too much experience, be honest about it. Not your favorite, okay? See, sometimes whenever we say not our favorite, it's just because we haven't quite learned all of the aspects of that program. I know I learned free. I don't know if you ever heard this program. There was a program called Freehand, and it was very similar to Illustrator, and I learned on that first. Just like Quark Express is very similar to InDesign. You probably never heard of that either. I learned on Quark Express first. And I learned throughout 4 years, or two to 4 years throughout my program in my undergrad, I learned on those platforms. And then we had to switch it up to Illustrator. And then InDesign was actually when I was working in the field. And I just remember saying, oh, I don't really like it. But once I got used to it and had practice and felt comfortable and felt, just more confident in using the tools and navigating it, then I started to like it. So sometimes it's just the level of experience that you have. But why I like to ask you this, yeah, exactly, because it can be frustrating at first for sure. Why I like to ask this is just because I want to gauge your level of comfort and experience, because some students are at the 1 scale and some are at the 5 scale. And, kind of in this class, I'm going to touch upon the basics, but I also will have a little, obviously more, a little bit more, I guess more intense stuff that we'll be getting into. But if there's any time that you feel like I'm going too fast, or if there's something that you're just not quite getting, I'm here for you guys to succeed. I want you guys to all do really well in this class. Like, come out with all A's, because to me, that's my goal. Not only does it look good on my part, but it makes me feel like, yes, I accomplished having you guys learn this program and learn all the concepts and everything that is involved with this class. So if there's a point where you're struggling, reach out to me. That's why I'm here. All right. So just a course overview. Upon successful completion of this course, you'll be able to have a basic knowledge of page layout design and be able to produce print jobs using Adobe InDesign. This is like one of my favorite classes to teach, because I've had so much experience in this type of, with page layout and publication work, and it's just something I really enjoy. So hopefully I can give what I know to you guys to be successful and feel more comfortable in InDesign and overall layout design. So over the next 4 weeks in the mod, you will create a multi-page magazine using InDesign. Okay, don't let that freak you out. We're going to do a page at a time, or sections at a time. Have a basic knowledge of page layout design. It's pretty much what you're going to have as well. So week 1, live lecture 1 overview today. So we're going to go over the 5 basic principles of graphic design, of course, right? We couldn't not lead with that, because we try to pound that in your heads. And there's a reason for that, because that's pretty much what we use as the principles of what we do. If we're not following those, then obviously our foundation of what we do is not going to be strong and will not work. So we're going to talk about these basic principles of graphic design that you take for granted every day, something that maybe, don't really think about. We're going to discuss that. We're going to talk about the do's and don'ts of publication design, some things that you want to do and things that you want to avoid. And then we'll go over your discussion 1, see if you have any questions, and then start your assignment 1. We'll do a little demo. All right. Before we get started in anything, do you have any questions so far, or anything in your mind that you want to say? Have you guys ever designed a magazine before? Okay, so you designed a multi-page document. Good. And then inside might not be a magazine, but very cool. So there'll be some similarities for sure. There'll be some other things that'll be different. Good. All right, so before we get into the 5 basic principles of graphic design that you take for granted every day, just real quick housekeeping things that we just want to take a look at before we get into all the nitty-gritty details. And this is stuff that you guys are probably privy to, but I just want to point it out. Live sessions, and of course you're here, so that's great. You know where this information is, but if you are listening to the recording, this is where the lecture days and times are. It's a little weird in this class because my custody schedule I need to shift the weeks. So week 1 and 3 we'll be meeting Monday and Wednesday. And you'll notice the times pretty much are the same, but the days change. So week 1 and 3 we'll meet Monday and Wednesday. And if you're Mountain Time, we'll meet at 9:30. If you're Eastern Time like me, 11:30, and so on and so forth. Now, week 2, we'll be meeting instead of Monday and Wednesday, we'll be meeting Tuesday and Thursday. Same time, just different day. So just kind of keep that in mind. The recordings will be here. So when we're done, I will place that in there. Usually it takes about half hour to get that loaded. So check that out. All right, so a little goofy when it comes to like, it's not on the same day all the time. So I just wanted to point that out. Just know your daily checkpoints are a great way to get extra credit every day, plus supplemental information that you will learn too every day that's related to this course. Shark academic resources, we know, obviously you have those resources available if you need help. Course information just talks about this class in general. A library, Student Success Center if you need extra help one-on-one time. Readings and videos. This is where I just want to kind of point something out here. Good morning, Misty. Great to have you here. I'm just going over some housekeeping stuff in your course media here. Week 1, just make sure you're going in here because they have required articles and also great lynda.com playlist supplemental videos that you can definitely check out. Now, this is something that this part is, if you want to go in and take a look, you don't have to look at all of these. But let's say if you're, kind of having an issue with creating character styles. You can go in here and say, okay, I want to watch this video. So this is more of a resource down here, whereas this is required articles that you need to take a look at. These required articles will help you kind of understand every week what we're doing in the projects, but also in the discussions as well. So check that out. Okay, I know you guys probably know that. I just want to go over that really quickly here. And then career preparation, computer support, help desk, it's all pretty much, what it is. And then about me, there's my bio, but this is also my contact information here. So if you're not privy to my email address or my phone number, that can be all located there. Course content list, this is just a kind of a nice list of what we'll be going over each day and week. I'm sorry, not every day, every week. Oh, I'm sorry. That's not what this is. This is actually a good splash page. So this is kind of showing you the same thing that you see on the front, but kind of breaking it down a little bit more in detail. I was thinking of a different button there, sorry. So if you wanted to get into the live sessions here, you can click on there. It's pretty much the same thing. The only nice thing about this too is you can get to the lynda.com porthole there, and then you can see in each week kind of all of your things that you have to kind of participate in. I think what I was thinking about was in your syllabus over here. So if I click on the syllabus, don't forget that this is your syllabus. Breaks it down. Let me see, I think there's like a list down here in your maybe course information. Yep, right here. It's a topical outline. I like this because this kind of gives you a nice, say if you're having an issue with time management, this is a nice breakdown of what you should be spending time on when. And then also it gives you an idea of what we're going to go over each week in detail. So week 1, for instance, understand the topic you're about to design. It kind of breaks it down on what we're going to be discussing for this week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4. And then there's a task list. So it kind of breaks it down with how much time you'll be spending, say on live lectures, 4 hours, because we're doing 2 hours each. So that's why it's breaking it down to 4. It talks about how much time you should be spending on reading and all that good stuff. So if you're, oh, sorry guys. Okay. All right, so that's pretty much where all that is. And then my announcements is how I talk to you guys as well, generally. So nice to see you too, Misty. Sorry, I didn't see that in the chat there. So, if you know, obviously I'm going to give you some resources here too, but if there's something I need to get to you guys about besides emailing, I'll post it here. There's a welcome message, you know, for instance, and then your learning coach week 1 schedule and contact information is listed here as well. Give me 1 second, you guys. All right, sorry about that. You know, I said that I have a new puppy and my puppy was getting into something, so I had to relocate him. Sorry for that. All right, so my daughter just had a birthday over the weekend and her gifts were out. He was getting into that, so I had to redirect his focus, let's just say. Oh, it's like having another kid. All right, so Tara, Tara is your learning coach. So this is her schedule here and contact information. I apologize if you hear my little man barking. He's going to be a little upset with me right now, but we have to contain him while we go through the lecture here. Do you have any questions? He's a little wiener. He's a dash hound, so he definitely is stubborn. He's a crazy guy. All right, no questions. That's pretty much all the housekeeping we have. So let's go ahead and take a look at the 5 basic principles of graphic design you take for granted every day. Maybe not you. Yeah, Tara's great. Tara is great. I usually have her in a lot of my classes that I teach as far as a learning coach, so she will definitely help you out. Okay, so the first one that we may kind of take advantage of is proximity. Proximity is a hard principle to learn for some students. I know it took me a little while to kind of understand this, but basically proximity is how you group your sections of information. So if everything kind of runs together, it's going to be hard to follow. There's no real pathway for the eye to flow. And when you have a lot of information, especially like on a web page or say a double page spread article, you really need that nice proximity, the space in between your sections and grouping of sections in order for the eye to flow nicely and be more organized. So you see that information on the left is, you know, you have some, you know, obviously that's probably not the best overall layout design, but you can see the sectioned off areas. You can see the square there kind of pulling in that information, and then the little star with that other information kind of grouped together is probably not the best layout. But on the right, you can see the difference is it's just kind of all running together. You might see hierarchy with the big number and emphasis of color and boldness, but as far as proximity goes, it's all kind of running together. So how to use proximity. So place items further or closer depending on their relationship. So you can see the very first square there shows unite on the top. So that's how you can show proximity with you know, maybe you wanted to show more of a united look. And this is just showing a basic shape on how you would do that, just using proximity. All right, sorry guys. And then on the very bottom of that is opposite, so it's fragment. So it's kind of showing you those little circles kind of unevenly spread out. The middle one is showing order because you have them nicely aligned. in the rows and the columns, very equally spaced, and then the bottom is showing chaos, so complete opposite. The third column is showing equal, so it's showing not only equal circles, you know, they look equal, but also they're on the same baseline. They're very aligned together. Unequal is just kind of pulling that one element out of there. So that's kind of how you would do that using proximity. Here's an example of how you would use proximity on, say, a web page. So the picture on the left shows unclear proximity between text and visuals. And the one on the right, items are placed along a recognizable horizontal line. So it's a little bit more organized on a grid using proximity. Same thing with here. Alignment is another principle that sometimes we take for granted. Alignment is really big too. It's one of the things I think I harp a lot upon a lot of students say may not be very consistent with. So alignment is very, very important in a layout. So alignment is basically how you have your type and maybe your images, your elements aligned in a way. Now, they don't always have to be symmetric or asymmetric. You know, they don't have to be centered. They may have the same alignment. If everything's kind of pushed off of alignment, where it's just not quite aligned, it's just kind of offset, then, you know, obviously there's no consistency, no cohesiveness, and it looks like things are floating around on the page instead of having a nice alignment grid structure to them. Repetition. Repetition is big. You know, you can show repetition either with imagery, shape, copy, color. So there's a, you know, it's not just with images. Repetition, you know, in a publication design is key because it allows you to understand that you are looking at maybe the same article on different pages. You know, because you've probably read magazines where the pages may be like 8 pages and then it might skip a couple because of ads or another section and then return again on another page. So having consistency through repetition is a great way to keep it cohesive so that the reader knows that they're looking at the same article. Contrast is another one. So contrast will allow, is something that we take for granted too. Now on the left-hand side there, it's showing contrast, but maybe not the best contrast that will really make it more dynamic. This is more of a flat looking design on the left as compared to the right. The one on the right is using contrast just with that red pop of color to make it look more dynamic and less static and flat. So that's something to think about whenever you're doing your designs. It's okay to have, you know, that pop of color contrast. Contrast is key, especially with copy, body copy. You want to make sure it's readable. This is an example of body copy that is not readable on the left-hand side here with all those red X's. So you want to make sure you have really good contrast. The top gray is a little bit too much the same hue, makes it hard to read. The middle one, you have color complements. So that red is really buzzing off of that green, you know, when you look at it. Those two colors don't go really well together with the body copy. And then on the bottom, we have 2 colors that are pretty similar, and it's super hard to read. It's almost buzzing, but in a bad way. On the right-hand side is showing you what you can do to make it more contrasted so that it's readable. I have a lot of students that struggle with this, so just make sure that, you know, if you're dealing with body copy, especially in a box, color box, you're doing it correctly. You just need more contrast. I will be doing a demo this lecture, yes, for assignment 1. And then we'll be doing assessment 1 on Wednesday. Okay, so we'll get to that in a second here. Just a couple of things. This is, you probably have seen this before. This is a nice little infographic showing those 4 principles we just talked about: contrast, repetition, alignment, proximity. It's a little hard to read here. I can post this to announcements so you guys can download it if you want. Oh, okay, yeah, we'll be going over that today, page numbering. Yep. Yeah, so this is a nice visual just to understand each of those concept, the principles of design. And then these are the elements of design. This is what we use element-wise in our layouts to help, you know, carry that visual message through. So we have line, color, shape, texture, size, space, value. Good. Okay, there you go. Any questions about that? It's pretty simple, right? All right, so those are just some things to kind of keep in mind when you're designing your pages. Be mindful of. Let's look at the do's and don'ts of publication design. It's always good to look at the do's and the don'ts. So we do the do's, we don't do the don'ts, right? So we keep text clean, right? So don't use more than 3 fonts on a given spread. And we're talking about headers, footers, credits are excluded. So we're talking about subheads, headlines, body copy, obviously anything pull quote wise. So you want to don't use more than 3 fonts on a given spread. What happens if you use more than 3 fonts? On a given spread, what do you think would happen? Why is that? Why is this a no-no? Makes it look unprofessional and hard to read. Good. So it's almost like a disconnect because it's like, okay, there's just so many different typefaces here. It's almost like it's hard to follow. There's no consistency. Good. Yep. Don't use body text below 10 points. But I would not even go if and I see this a lot too. I see a lot of students using too high of a point size too. So generally speaking, I would use around 10 to 11 point type, but I would not go below 10 point type. It's just too hard to read. Now, if you're working on a magazine, say for the elderly, like an elderly target audience, say like AARP or something like that, you would obviously make it a little bit larger for that target audience. But generally speaking, don't keep it below 10 point. Don't reverse text out of pale color blocks or photos with variegated color backgrounds. It's just too hard to read. We looked at that as an issue before we got into this. You want to keep readers moving. So avoid creating visual stops in the flow of text. A full stop at the end of the last column on a page implies the article is over. So give readers a cue to keep reading. Sometimes it'll say, you'll have like a little parentheses saying continue on, or there'll be a little like dingbat or whatever. Those are some cues. You don't want to stop. You don't want to let images create walls that stall readers' progress. Sometimes images are placed in there and then it makes maybe the columns of your body copy too skinny and it just makes it hard to read. So don't do that either. Don't cram so much text on a page that it becomes difficult to navigate. Instead, break information into digestible chunks with subheads, bullet lists, and graphics. You know, just having that pause of visual pause is all that you need. I've had students that do a double page spread and it's all copy. It's all body copy. There's no imagery. So it's just too overwhelming looking and we need to kind of break it up a little bit. We want to foster engagement. We want to highlight key facts. That way, you know, the eye goes into your article, pulls the eye into it, fosters engagement. You know, there could be a call out of some sort, like go to whatever web page, you know, for example. Enhancing navigation, just like that. You know, go to whatever page if you want to read more, or fostering interactivity. Maybe a call out of some sort is a good way to do that. Careful with color. You know, a 10% tint block behind pull quotes or other decorative text elements is plenty. So you want to make sure you don't have too dark of text on top of a darker tint. You want to keep it kind of light. If you're reversing text out of a color block, be sure the type is large enough to be knocked out, generally over 12 points, and the color is dark enough to provide adequate contrast, so generally over 50% tint. That's for readability purposes. Any questions about that? I actually have a funny story about that. And you know, it's one of those things that sometimes you live and you learn. I was actually designing, it wasn't for a publication, it was for a newspaper ad. And sometimes we have to think about the paper that it's being printed on. I was designing an ad for a bank, and I put the smaller information in a dark black box. But the font that I chose was so thin, and on the computer it looked great. And it was smaller text in white, reversed out on top of black. But whenever the printer printed it on newsprint, what do you think happened? Big black color block, white type, thin, on a very porous paper. That newsprint really sucks in the ink, right? Yep, it disappeared. Could barely read it. And it was, you know, probably 10 or 11 point type. But I used a very thin font, and then I used it on a dark background, and then the paper that it was printed on. So I definitely learned my lesson. So not only is it, you know, just being aware of the font that you're using, but also the paper that you're having it printed on. Typically in a magazine, the paper isn't as porous, you know, so you don't have that issue. Just a funny story. Sometimes you just go through, you experience those things after the fact, and it's just, you'll learn from it. All right, so let's take a look at your discussion 1 and see if you have any questions. Let's get the discussion started. Don't forget to, in your week 1, you have your intro post as well. And these are the learning objectives that we'll be going over. So we're going to discuss how styles enable better design and a more effective workflow. Identify and discuss 3 strategies to create an efficient workflow to create a multi-page project. Create a design strategy for a multi-page layout utilizing principles of design. Differentiate between effective and ineffective grid use when communicating with the end user, and apply a well-defined grid structure to enhance visual hierarchy. So this week, you'll begin production on your magazine, like I said, starting with creating a design strategy utilizing the principles of design, as well as applying a well-defined grid structure that will lay down the foundation for preparing the editorial article for placement in the magazine. There's also a little inspirational video here, so you can definitely check that out. Discussions, though, I just wanted to show you real quick here. There's an intro discussion. So you can introduce yourself and answer the prompted question here. And so just read through this and, you know, introduce yourself, and you can answer the prompted questions. That's for your introduction. And I'm going to go right back into discussions. We're going to go to your first discussion here. Yeah, well, the intro discussion is just a way of everybody, you know, being an online student, you're not in a classroom setting. You're not going physically into a class. So sometimes it's hard to make those connections with your, and I want to say hard depending upon how, you know, how you participate in your classes and respond to each other. I have classes with groups of people who stay in touch all the time, even outside of class, and that's great. But the intro discussion is just to introduce yourself to myself, because I might not know who you are. Say who you are so I understand like a little bit more about you, because I'm not meeting you in person. You can post pictures of yourself or your kids or your fur babies if you want. And just a way for all of us to kind of get to know each other in an online platform environment, because it really is kind of a different way of going through school. It's different. So the more contact, the more that we can participate in this way, the more I think you guys will gain from this class. Not only that, you'll make network with people. And let me tell you this is crazy. When you graduate, if you have a really good networking system, not only with your instructors, but your fellow peers, when you get when you graduate, you will be amazed at how many doors may open with people that you have graduated with as far as career-wise. So this is a way for you guys to, you know, not only do like kind of icebreaker, get to know each other, but also stay in touch with each other. You may have all had classes together. You may all know each other, and that's great. I might not know who you are. You might be the first time I ever had you as a student. So it's just a good way to kind of get to know you guys, especially in an online environment. It's not graded. It's just one of those, you know, things to kind of to network and get to know each other. Now your discussion one is graded. And some people, I know some people copy and paste their information, and then, which is fine if you know, obviously you're so used to doing that introduction part. So you can copy and paste the general stuff about who you are, and then answer the discussion, the actual question that's posed in each class, kind of add to it. Yeah, I know, but it's like one of those things where you're supposed to be kind of, you know, put it out there so everybody gets to know you. All right, so let's go over all about efficiency, infinite possibilities. Excuse me. All right, so implementing a successful workflow and being able to save time and stay organized is essential to being productive. Designers, whether in-house, freelance, or agency-based, share a common challenge when it comes to digital projects, managing their creative workflow strategy. There are several tools available, including Adobe Bridge, Adobe Creative Cloud Libraries, and InDesign Styles creative professionals used to streamline their workflow strategy and efficiently manage and organize design assets. Do you use Adobe Bridge? If not, you've been missing out. Adobe Bridge is an incredibly powerful tool used to bridge the content between your Creative Cloud apps. As part of your strategy, Bridge can be used to automate repetitive tasks, browse collections of images, manage artwork, and design assets so they are easily accessible no matter where they reside on your computer. Misty, you're funny. CC Libraries offer some fantastic ways to improve your color management strategy and style sheet strategy. For example, you can add colors, color themes, paragraph styles, and character styles to your Creative Cloud library, which can be used in InDesign, Illustrator, as well as Photoshop to help expedite your project workflow to create multi-page projects. As a designer, you'll find that if you adjust your workflow, you can speed things up, be more organized, and be able to stay in complete control to keep those fast-paced multi-page projects on track. So your prompts: have you ever started a design project only to find it takes much longer to complete than you thought it should? In the world of multi-page layout, there are ways to improve and streamline your creative workflow process to enable faster and more consistent multi-page documents. In fact, the point of streamlining your workflow is to implement the right strategy to solve the design problem at hand. Many of us have been there. We meet with a client, plan our design strategy, set a project deadline, and everyone is happy. Such is the case with Billy Jones, a very talented and creative freelance designer who has met with and landed a new client. The client has asked him to prepare and produce a multi-page trade publication with a very tight deadline. Billy agrees to meet the scheduling demands of his client and will begin the layout the following morning. It's now late the following afternoon, and Billy has found the design is time-consuming and challenging, putting him into unknown territory, in jeopardy of missing his deadline. The next day, the client called and was unable to reach Billy until later that afternoon. When they finally spoke, Billy said, "Mr. Smith, I'm sorry. This project is taking much longer than expected, but I'll have this completed by tomorrow morning, guaranteed." The excuses went on for several days. Eventually, he turned in a partially completed project and told his client, "I've done what I can. Have a look, and please let me know what you think. Feel free to make any changes you believe are necessary." In the end, what was promised by the designer in 24 hours took 1 week to complete. For this discussion, research the advantages of using Adobe Bridge, Adobe Creative Cloud Libraries, and InDesign style sheets. You can discuss the advantage of using, of how each is used to create an effective workflow to improve your production, how each of those. From what you've learned, discuss 2 strategies you would recommend Billy Jones use to improve his workflow and speed up design tasks, allowing him to meet his client's tight deadline. Different strategies can achieve the same result, and all may seem like viable solutions. Look further into the scenario of how and why Billy's design process prevented him from delivering high-quality work for his client. So for your initial post, you may research workflow strategies used to navigate, share, collaborate, organize images, videos, and manage other creative assets used when creating a multi-page document. Don't forget to touch upon all of the participation requirements. The post, obviously all that information needs to be met as well for your evaluation. And then what's nice in here is your task benchmark examples. So if you're a little bit unsure of how to start this, looking at past student work that is an example of A work, so you get A work, is here and how they kind of formed their discussion. So here's the first one. You can read through that eventually, but don't forget to reference here where obviously the supportive material that you had in there to back up your perspective. So that's the first sample, and then this is the second one. And then there's comments and there's sticky notes from the instructor kind of giving some feedback here. So that's the first one, and this is the second one. Any questions about that? Pretty straightforward. That's kind of nice to have those examples in there because, if you're really stuck, you can at least read what other people have done and kind of get a general idea of what you can do to approach the discussion. Don't forget to respond to 2 different peer posts on separate days for possible full credit as well. And start this as soon as you can. I know people are like, oh, when I was in graduate school, we had discussions too online, and it was like, I don't think I'm going to get anything out of this. Why do we have to do this? But it was kind of amazing how that kind of changed throughout my time as an online student, because what I thought was going to be a waste of time was actually one of the things that I got the most out of was through the discussions. And that was only because the interaction and participation of my other peers in the discussion. If they wouldn't have done that, I wouldn't have learned as much as I did throughout the discussions. They were able to pose different perspectives that I would have never thought about. What you get out of it? Well, of course. I mean, you get out of it a better grade, but then also you see different sides of maybe the discussion that, whenever I was a graduate student, I would post what I thought, and then I would have peers comment and show me a whole different perspective of thinking that I didn't even think about. So that I gained a lot out of that. Like, oh yeah, I could have maybe thought about it in this way, So there could be ways that you can respond to your peers to kind of look at things in a different way. If their initial post is only one-sided, or maybe they're not looking at it in the full perspective. All right, so that's the first discussion. We're at 60 points. Get that started as soon as possible so that people can participate and respond to your discussion as soon as possible. The earlier, the better. All right, did anybody go over or read over the assignment 1 details yet? Okay, maybe you guys glanced through it. Good. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look, and we'll do the overview, see if you have any questions, and then I'll start the demo. Don't get overwhelmed. This could be a little overwhelming looking, but we're going to break it down. Yeah, okay, you started it. Good. Did anybody else get started on this? Nobody else? Just Misty? Okay, good. It's okay if you get started or not. You can wait until the lecture and go from there. All right, so we're gonna go over the first part of your, this is gonna be a work in progress type of a project. So we're gonna build upon this multi-page magazine, which will be 8 pages total. Whenever we get to the end for week 4, you'll have 8 pages to sign. Oh, there you go, priorities. 600-page paper. Never even heard of that. That's crazy. Oh, good luck with that. All right. Papers aren't my strong suit, so I feel for you. All right. Oh, I'm sure you'll be fine. But yeah, good luck. Good luck to you. I'll be drinking lots of coffee. All right, so you guys are going to be building upon this, you know, this 8-page magazine. So a lot of this information down here in your prompt is, you know, very, you know, there's just a lot of information here. But I think once I break it down and kind of go through the steps, you'll see that it's not as bad as you think here. Oh, okay. All right, so what I want you to do is just read through the background here. I won't read through this word for word. It's just talking about, you know, the idea of using your principles of design effectively on all of your pages, including your editor's letter. So we're going to be working on your editor's letter for this first project. So go ahead and read through the background. I'll go right to the prompt, and then we'll get started with the demo. Oh, there you go. Good luck, Misty. All right, so welcome to the exciting world of publishing. Acme Media Group has hired you to become the newest member of their creative team. For the next 4 weeks, you will be responsible for preparing and producing the visual layout of an 8-page magazine using the power of InDesign. This week, you will begin production on your magazine, starting with creating a design strategy utilizing the principles of design, as well as applying a well-defined grid structure that will lay down the foundation for preparing the editorial article for placement in the magazine. So you're going to choose one of the magazine's options below. Each source file includes the following. There's a little note there. It says all content provided can only be used for school projects and cannot be reused for any other project or use. So in each of these, so you have 3 choices: Remodeler Magazine, the main ingredient, and FitMe. But in each of those files that you can download, you'll see these bulleted files. So you'll see the magazine flag, so that's the logo for the magazine name. You'll see a list of articles. You'll see a table of contents. You'll see the editorial article and then the feature article. So go ahead and download that. Once you read through these and choose which one that you want to do, download that file. You won't be using all of this for this week, but you'll need all of that going forward. So the first option, client-wise, magazine-wise, is the Remodeler Magazine, and it offers expert advice on home improvement, from design to building to remodeling every room in the house. The main ingredient focuses on fit, healthy eating habits, offering new cooking recipes that anyone can prepare, and covers issues related to making best food decisions. And then the Fit Me magazine is a magazine focusing on health and exercise for the future, including diet advice, workout, and cutting-edge fitness information. So I'm going to choose Fit Me just for the demo, so I'm going to go ahead and download this. It's a zipped file, and I'll show you kind of what's in this file so you can see. I just downloaded it. So here's what I see in my Fit magazine. So I have my article folder. So here's the Word file. And this is typically how you're given articles from writers or your publisher. You know, they'll send it to you in a Word document, so you just copy and paste that information in. Here's a list of articles, feature article, and table of contents. So those are all the articles. You have the barcode GIF. You won't be using this yet, but that's where that's at. For Fit Me, here is the flag. So you have the black one and the white one. And they're AI files, so you can, those are the original working files. And then for Fit Me, here are the editorial and feature images. So you can definitely check that out. Here's the editorial, which we'll be working on today. And here's the feature, which we'll be working on future in the next couple weeks here. So what you want to do is just go ahead and download this to your computer and then set up, obviously your workflow. Set up your week 1 through 4 on your computer so that you can place those files in there as you go forward. It's really important to be organized, especially for this project, because each week you're going to be adding to it, but you need to know where everything is in your original documents. You'll be making changes as well. Okay, so obviously we're doing this in InDesign. So once you choose your magazine, your size of your pages will be 8.5 by 11, and you're going to be portrait format with facing pages. So facing pages basically is kind of like a printer spread where you can see double page spreads, cover image is all kind of in a printer spread fashion. There'll be 8 pages, so you set it to 8 pages. Article placement, so the editorial article begins on page 2. So you'll go right to page 2 after you create your 8 pages. The inside front cover is basically where that will start. So you're going to allow space for the table of contents to be created in week 4. So the space will be kind of blank until week 4 happens, so just kind of be aware of that. You will determine how much room you will need for the table of contents and editorial based on your design ideas. Page 7, which is the inside back cover, continues your editorial article. So you'll be designing on page 2 and page 7. You're going to create master pages. That's required. You're going to define a well-defined grid structure to enhance visual hierarchy. You're going to add page numbers. You're going to create paragraph styles required for the title, subtitle, body copy, byline. Use all copy provided for editorial. Use all images provided for the editorial article. Additional images are not approved. Apply the principles of design. Use linked text frames to connect editorial copy from page 2 to 7, and I'll show you how to do that. When you're done, you're going to package your file to include a PDF. I'll show you how to do that. You're going to save your package folder as a zip file. I can show you how to do that, and then you're going to name it as such for evaluation. There's benchmark examples in here, so if you want to see how other people designed this, and they received an A, you can look at those 2 examples. Here's one. Now, of course, these little red areas are comments from the instructor. So obviously you're not going to design that, but there's one example, and then that's page 2, and then it continues on page 7. Okay, that's the first one, and then the second one, here's this one. Editorial, this space here is for the table of contents, by the way, so it's just blank, and then this is page 7. Any questions so far? I'm going to go through a step-by-step demo, so if you have any specific questions, I'll probably be going over a lot of stuff that may help here in a second. All right, let's get started. All right, so I'm going to create my new document, and I know you guys can't see this. Give me 1 second. In InDesign. Let's see if I can share this screen. I just went to InDesign. I did File, New, and I'm going to choose the 8.5 by 11. I don't think they gave you, I don't think they gave you any type of margin details. So I would just keep the margins as is, and that's 1/2 inch top, 3/4 bottom, left and right are also 1/2 inch. And then you can set the bleed to 1/4, or I'm sorry, 1/8 of an inch. Okay, and then here is where you have to just pay attention that these are inches, and it's 8.5 by 11, portrait. You'll want to type in 8 where it says pages, and you want to check this box here, facing pages. Columns and all that, just leave that as is. Column, gutter, this is perfect. We'll change the columns if we need to. I'll show you how to do that. And then choose create. Okay, give me 1 second because I lost you guys. There we go. Let me share my desktop here so you guys can see everything I'm doing. Okay. I'm going to share my whole desktop here so you guys can see all of my palettes here. Okay, the one thing I want you guys to pay attention to is on the upper right-hand corner where it says Essentials. Go ahead and click on that and just make sure you reset it. That resets all of your palettes. And you can actually go and choose maybe book, because that'll bring you the panels up for maybe book publications. Let me see how these are set up. Yeah, that's good. So it sets up your panels based on, say, like a publication, a book publication. All right, you'll notice that you'll have the top area here of your panels, and that'll change based on the tools that you choose here in your toolbar. And then obviously you have your floating panels over here. So here's your pages. If you don't have that up, you can go to Window and Show Pages. This is an important box panel to pay attention to. This is going to be the way that you change your master pages, so we can set our page numbers, for instance. But right now, you can see I have 8 pages total. You guys will be designing on page 2 this week for assignment 1, and page 7. This will be the 2 pages you're designing for. You're going to leave everything else blank, and we're going to go from there. Master pages. Have you guys ever played around with master pages? Okay. I'm just going to do a quick little demo so you can understand what right now I have a little, see that little A on each of my pages? That's just telling me those are all master pages. I don't really have anything on my master page. If you need to set anything and create your master pages, you need to actually double click right on top of the master page. So once you double click, it's going to bring up this double page spread. All right, so just for visual representation of what this does, I'm going to just do a circle on this left side here. I'm going to give it a color. And notice in your pages, see how all the left page, master pages all turn blue with the circle. And if I were to switch this to the right, look how it's moving on my pages. So whatever you put on your master pages, it's going to repeat based on if you have a master page set in your pages. This is something that is great and efficient to do if you have repeating elements throughout, say, a multi-page document that you don't want to keep repeating. So for instance, page numbers, maybe like, you know, aesthetics that are repeated all the way through. You can see the, yes, you can have a color background as long as it's, you know, the type is readable. Now, if you don't want a master page, say like on the cover page, say on this page, you don't want a master page, you just go up to the none, click and drag over top, and let go, and it becomes a regular page and not a master page. This is important because we want to, the cover and usually the back cover do not have page numbers, so you want to set them as no master page. You just click one time and click and drag over top. Click and drag. If you want to activate your master pages, you double click to open that up. This is the only way you can edit your master pages. Like once you get double click into your pages, you cannot change this. Yeah. So you have to double click right over the master page, and that's how you can change your elements. Okay. So that's just a little bit about master pages. We'll talk a little bit more about this. As we go forward here. You're welcome. So that's master pages. And then when you go click on the regular pages, just double click. And you'll notice the purple margin space and a little bit more is left down here for your folio. The folio is the page number and the name of your magazine. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to show you how to set up your folio first. That's the page number. Somebody had made mention of that, so let's go ahead and do that. Double click on your A master page. Again, double click. I'm going to zoom out so you guys can see. Yep. So the left page will be kind of where your page number should be on the left-hand side, and then the right, your page number should be on the right. Now, you can have, what I would like you to do is have the page number and maybe the name of the magazine on the right side or the left side, depending on the page. So I'll show you how you would do that. So I would start on the left side, and again, double click on your master page to do that. Once that's open, take your type tool. Go ahead and draw out a type box. Hold on 1 second. I just clicked the zoom button and now I got the wheel of death. There we go. Okay. So go ahead. I'm going to draw it kind of starting where the guide is on the very bottom and draw it out all the way to the left side. Align it perfectly on the left side there. Okay, so there's my text box. Now take your type tool and just click right in there so you have a nice little blinker ready to go. Now we want the page number to be on this left side. So what we want to do is go up to type on your menu bar. Go all the way down to insert special character. And we want to go to markers. You might want to screenshot this if you're doing this quickly. And then what you want to choose is current page number. And what that's going to do is type an A there. Don't worry about the A. That's just going to tell you that that number is going to change based on the page that it's set on. And it's kind of weird, but I'll show you. So just leave that's, if you see an A, you did good. You don't want to type an A. It's just going to place an A. Then what I would do is type the name of the magazine. So I think Fit Me is the magazine that I chose, so Fit Me, and I think they have the fit is little t like that. So I'm going to highlight both of that. I don't have a space in there either. I'm going to show you how to set up your tabs. So highlight, just double click or highlight your type. Go up to type again and choose tabs. This bar will appear, and it's going to show you this roll line from where you have your type box set from the 0 to the 7.5. I want Fit Me, just the word Fit Me, to align right here on my right margin. So I'm going to take my right justified tab, click on that little right arrow, and then I'm going to just click one time on my ruler, and I'm going to drag this all the way over to the very where 7.5 is. This ruler may kind of shift, but that's where my margin is. That's where I want my tab to be, where I want my word to kind of align to. When I'm done, if I mess up, you can always pull this off. You can delete it. You can do another one. Don't feel too shy to play around with this. You know, you can change it. You can delete these. You can move these. Even if, say, if you didn't set this right the first time, you can go back and edit it. Hit this little red X when you're done. That sets it. So all you have to do is put your cursor right in between where you want to put the tab. So right after the A and before the Fit Me. Go ahead and click in there and then hit tab. And it sets it to that tab. Now let's say this isn't quite where it needs to be. Just double click on it again, highlight all of your words, go back up to type, hit tabs again, and it's going to show you that tab, and you can adjust it based on, you know, this rule line. So it's adjustable. Just click that little X when you're done. Any questions about that? It's pretty self-explanatory. All right, I'm gonna kind of guess that you guys are good. So I'm gonna go up to, do you guys ever play with style sheets? Good. So I'm gonna show you how to do a style sheet. Style sheets are great. They're not master pages, they're style sheets, so you can set up one style. Like say, for instance, you want the page number to be bold in a certain color every time. Yeah, so you can set that style and then apply it very easily instead of repeating that same process over and over again. So character styles are basically, welcome Mercedes, basically for one character that you set a style for, and then paragraph styles are for more than one character. So for the page number, I would just select a character style. So go ahead and select character style. And you're always going to have a default, so ignore the none. Go up on the right-hand corner of your panel and just choose new character style. And we're going to name this page number. Right here where it says style name. Oh, no, not that. Page number. My finger was on the wrong area there. Basic character information. This is where you can set the font family. So I'm going to just set it to Universe. It's a nice font family. I'm going to set it to a 65 bold. And usually page numbers aren't real big, depending upon the style that you want. So I'm going to do about a 9 point. I'm not going to worry about any of the leading. You don't really need to worry about that. The color, I'm going to set to blue. Everything else you can look at, but you don't really need to do much on that. Now, the only way that you would apply this style is if you highlight the actual style that you want to apply it to, the actual, letter or words, highlight it, and then choose that style, and it'll change right to that. See how it kind of did the blue, bold, and a different font. Same thing with Fit Me. Let's do the same thing. Okay, no problem, Shelly. You can always listen to the recording. I'm going to go ahead and choose Fit Me. I'm going to do a new style, character style, because it's one word. And I'm going to name title Folio. So I'm going to name this so I know it's in my folio. And I'm going to make this Universe. And I'm just going to make this a regular Roman. And then okay, so the size, I'll do the same, like 9 point. Character color, I'll make this red. And then if I want to apply it, I just choose that title, and it applies that right there. There's another really interesting thing that you guys can play around with. You could put a line over top of this, but it will have to be a paragraph style in order to do so. So what we're going to do is choose, go to Style and choose Paragraph. Good size. I would say probably like 11 points with 14-point leading. So a new character style, it's going to be just like the paragraph style, but it's going to give you a little bit more options because it's for body copy. I'm going to just name this Folio, and I'm going to base this on, let's do page numbers, fine. One second here. Oh wait, I'm doing a character style. I don't want a character style. I want a paragraph style. Where's my styles here? Sorry guys. I lost my paragraph styles here. Hold on. I think it's behind it's behind all of you guys. I have so many little windows here. Hold on 1 second. There's my character. Let me reset this here 1 second. This is where it gets a little tricky because everything's kind of, all right, paragraph styles. That's what I want. There we go. Okay, so paragraph style looks like character style, only it says basic paragraph, so we're going to just do a new paragraph style. We're going to name this Folio. And I just want to show you something really neat that you can do this too. Let's see. Universe bold 9. What we're going to do is go to your paragraph rules, And what this does is it'll put a rule above, like a line rule above your title down here. So you just click on roll on above, keep that the same. I would do like a thinner one, so maybe 0.25 or 0.5. I'll do 0.25. I'll do it blue. And one thing to play around with is your offset. And I'll show you here. If you hit preview, you'll see it over here. And when you click to increase the offset, I'm going to click OK first. See, we have to actually apply this first. Here we go. I don't know if you guys can see, there's a rule line above here. So let me go back and change it. You can always change your style sheets. Just double click on there on the words and then double click on the actual style sheet. It will open up again so you can edit this. So go back to your rules, paragraph rules, and play around with this so that it's not so high up. So I would probably do about 0.1875, and you'll see that rule line. See that rule line right there? I don't know if you guys can see that. It's a nice little rule line that's nicely spaced so that it's a nice divider with copy. I'm going to pull this down so that the rule line is just below the margin. So if I have a baseline of my copy hitting on there, I have enough space in between there. Okay. So now what I would suggest, I have my left side planned out. Now I have to have my right side. So I would just click on this and choose Alt Drag, and it just makes a copy of that same rule. I'm sorry, same text box that you just did. And I would snap to align it to where you have the other one. Okay, so it's aligned. So make sure it's aligned on your left and also have enough space, just like this one, it's perfectly aligned, is you don't want your page number to be on the left here, right? You want it to be on the right. So I'll show you how you would change that. So I would copy and paste this. So go ahead and just highlight your Fit Me or your title, and then choose Command C or copy, file copy, and delete that. Go put your cursor right in front of the A and do a paste. So Command V is paste, Command V, and then you're going to hit Tab. That's the easy way to do that. Okay, so now you have two titles on the inside of your spine, which is perfect, and you have your page number on the outside. Go ahead and save that. You get assignment 1, first last name. Save your InDesign file. And then when you're ready to see those page numbers change, go to your page panel and double click on your 1. And whatever you have, if you don't have A's on each of these pages, you're gonna have to pull your master page A down. You just pull and drag down. We don't need a master page on 1, so we'll just set this at 0. So we'll just pull the none over top of that. And we don't need it on page 8, so drag that down. So you should have 1 and 8 should be blank. If you double click on 2, you'll go to your pages, and now you'll see that A changes to the page number that it's on. So 2 changes, or A changes to 2 on this, changes to 3. Go to page 4, changes to 4, 5, okay? And so on and so forth. It won't do it on page 1 and 2 because 1 is a cover. You shouldn't have a page number on your cover. And 8 is a back cover. You shouldn't have it on there. Okay? Any questions about that? Pretty easy. Now, if you were to want to change this, you can't do it in your pages. You need to double click on your master page to change it. Okay, the tab should work. It's probably something that you need to change on your end. So if go up to type tabs and make sure that you have that tab set perfectly, you know, wherever you have it set. If not, you can always change it. Let me see, I'm gonna pull this to the left here because I can't see my whole. tab. You can just grab the tab and go ahead and change it. See, I have this tab here. So like say if I wanted to make this more to the right, see now it's more aligned, and then just hit that little red button. And it's gonna save it just like that on every page if you change it there. Okay, so yeah, and if you have problems with it still, we can take a look at it, you know, whenever you need, whenever we have a time to do open critique. All right, so we're gonna design on page 2 and page 7. So what I want you to do is once you download your folder for whichever magazine that you wanna do, what you're gonna do is you're gonna open the article named editorial. The editorial article is a Word document. Actually, yeah, Word document here, hold on. And it should look like this, although if you're not doing the same magazine, it'll look a little different. So it should say editorial. What you're gonna do is just do a select all, so Command A and then a Command C. Now, before you do that, you notice there's some spelling errors in there. Let's do a spell check, right? Always important. So go up to Tools, Spelling and Grammar, and do a spell check and change anything that you see that kind of is spelled wrong. Ignore the ones that obviously aren't. So dinners, and then there's also grammar issues. Lots of grammar errors. Once it's good, now you can do a select all, copy, go back to your InDesign file, go back on your page, so double click on your page, take your type tool, and I would just go ahead and just draw out one big type box right now, just so you can copy and paste it. So I just did a paste, Command V, of what I just copied. Don't forget, you need kind of to leave an open space for your table of contents. So right now, really think about the grid that you want to do. At this point, I'm probably going to pull my copy box over for my first column, probably about, let's say around 4 inches over here. And I'm going to pull this all the way down to here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave this space pretty much open for my table of contents, which I'll mark gray now so you guys can see it. Or black, I'll just do black. Let me see here. Let's do like a tint of black. That's not super strong. Okay, so this is just kind of showing you this is the space for my table of contents that we'll get back to. You don't have to do a color square. You could just leave it all white. That's fine. But I'm setting up a grid, so I kind of want to leave some room for my headline. I want my one column to start here. So think about, you don't have to do the same thing that I'm doing, but start thinking about, you know, how you're going to set that up. Now, there's signifiers that you can put in place for each article section. Now, for instance, this is editorial. So I want a signifier up here. So I'm just going to draw out a box, for instance. Doesn't have to be a box, but that's just what I'm going to do. And this is something that's going to be consistent throughout that will signify what article that we're looking at, what section, I guess. Then I'm going to take my type tool and put it inside here, and I'm going to put editorial or letter from the editor. I'll put that. And I'm going to make, you know, obviously you can make a style sheet for this too. Let's do that. So paragraph style, let's do new paragraph style. Let's do section signifier. And we're going to make this universe. Just, you know, obviously something that's readable that you can keep consistent. Universe is a great font because it has so many different type families to pull from. Let's do white and see how that looks. Okay, it's a little big, so I'm gonna go back and just change this a little bit. And I'm gonna make this maybe more of a condensed bold. Oops, so I can make it a little bit bigger. So now people know, okay, this is letter from the editor, and I'm gonna align it within my box. So whenever the person's viewing this, they know it's the letter from the editor starting. Because this editorial is broken up between pages, so the next page, it won't continue back until the 7th page. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna copy this right here. I'm gonna go to page 7. This is page 7. This one. And I'm gonna paste it over here, but I'm gonna put it on the other side, very consistently, aligned consistently. And I can set the alignment a little different here. Where's my paragraph? I'm gonna do right justified. And then center. We can choose our alignments to center that too, but see how I kind of made that consistent. So now 7 people know that that's part of the editorial section. So you could do something similar. It doesn't have to be a bar, but I would definitely recommend doing something like that where you kind of continue it on. Now, as far as the copy goes, this needs to continue. It's up to you guys on how you want to do this space. You don't have to do exactly how I did it here. You can have this all be, you know, for your body copy, and this be, you know, your table contents, or this be your body copy and this be your table contents. You know, kind of play around with it and see what your grid structure is going to be. I just, you know, wanted to do it this way, and I just adjusted this so that this is not as long. Now I wouldn't, if I were to do something like this, I would break this up into 2 columns at least, because this line length is way too long. What happens when the line length is too long, it's hard to read because it's just too many words on a line. It's hard to follow. Typically, they say don't go over 72 characters on a line for readability's sake. So how would I break this up into 2 columns? There's an easy way to do this. Select your column and go up to your type tool. And we, excuse me, not your type tool. I always get this confused because I go right to type. Go to your object and choose text frame options. Object text frame options. And then with the preview button selected, all you're going to do is change this number of columns right here. And when you do, you'll see that broken up into 2 columns, depending on what you have, 3 columns, 4 columns. I would say don't go 4 columns. It's a little bit too thin. Like 2 definitely. 3 is okay. You can't see this setting? Okay, let me see. Hold on. You couldn't see anything that I was doing in the setting. Share desktop. Okay. Oh, okay. Did I forget to go back? I'm sorry. Sorry, guys. If I ever do that, let me know. Did you guys get to see how I set this letter from the editor up here? I just created this box, and then I put type in there, created a style sheet, and then I pulled it onto page 7. This type box, I was saying, I pulled it over here, so it's a thinner box, but if you were to utilize this whole line, I would break this up by going to Object, Text Frame Options, and I would break it up at least into 2 columns. Can you see that? Okay. Just for readability's sake. I'm going to pull this to 4, to where it says 4, and bring my, where's my box? I'm just going to leave this blank here. Okay, for my table of contents. Now, I'm going to take out this whole entire copy. I don't have to. I can actually leave it the same here. But what I want to do is I want to make this copy different. Okay, so I want to make it bigger because it is a headline. So let me just select the top, Life, Kids, and Brain Journey. So read it. Read this article. You'll get a good idea of how everything breaks, what this is about. That's what they usually tell you when you lay out an article. You want to make sure you read it. I'm going to select Life, Kids, and Brain Injury. I think that's a great kind of start for the headline. So I'm going to go to Styles, and I'm going to choose a paragraph style. I'm going to do a new paragraph style, and I'm going to name this headline Large. So I know it's the large one. And I'm going to give it, again, a universe character style. I'm going to do a light condense and just give it a really big typeface font or point size. I'm going to try 36 right now. It might be too big, but we'll see. Okay, that's not too bad. Okay, so I'm going to make it actually a little bit bigger. So I'm going to go back, and that's something that you can kind of play around with. And when you set it, you can actually see it as you change it here. I'm going to make it really big. Now, I can adjust my leading. And actually, I am going to break this out, and I'm going to tell you why. Okay, I'm going to select my byline, my subhead, and my headline. I'm going to select that, copy, and I'm going to delete it out. The reason being is because I want my body copy to align to a baseline, and I'll show you that in a second. So I'm going to do another box for my copy and just do a paste with my type tool of what I just copied. This will allow me more freedom so that this isn't locked on a baseline. You'll have issues if you have this locked on a baseline because the type's so big. So if you're having issues with that and you have it connected, that's why. Okay, so I'm going to make this bigger. The baselines are kind of a little tricky and should only be applied to your body copy. Okay, I'm going to fix the leading here so it's a little bit pulled together. And then I'm going to give it a character color. I'm going to go ahead and give it maybe, let's do a blue, a dark blue, okay. And then this should be secondary. So I'm going to go ahead and do a new paragraph style, and I'm going to say headline small. So I know the difference between the two. Universe. Condense. Let's do a bold condense this time. And let's do a little bit of a smaller typeface. So click OK and then apply it. And if you need to change it, you can. So let's go ahead and change the leading. It's a little bit too close to the headline. So let's pull it away a little bit. And I think that the size is okay. I'm just going to change the character color. Maybe to like a green. See if that looks good. There we go. Any questions about that so far? I know I'm going a little fast here, I apologize. Okay, the byline should be also treated differently. So let's do a new paragraph style for the byline. And I would just name this byline. That's the author line. And typically these are smaller in point size and just kind of sometimes italic. So we'll do a light condensed oblique. Excuse me, guys. And I'm going to keep it at 12 and black. Click OK and we'll see how that looks. Thank you. All right, so all I'm going to do is set the leading a little differently. This looks good. It's just a little bit too close to the subhead, so I'm going to pull this just down just a little bit. So 28-point leading with a 12-point type. That looks pretty good. You want a little bit of space in between the leading, between the headline. That's a good space. And then I'm going to pull this down closer to the body copy. And you can kind of put a line here if you want in between. It's completely up to you. You know, if you want to kind of play around with lines, just go ahead and pull your line from your toolbar. And once you select that line, you can go up to Window Stroke, and you can change the color, the style of it. I would go really, really, really thin just because you don't want it to be the emphasis. It's just a design element. And I'm just going to do a solid line, and I'm going to make it, let's see, I don't want to color. Let's go to your swatches. Hold on, I know somebody just typed in here. Hold on 1 second. Go to swatches, and I'm going to just choose that blue. There we go. And let me hide my guide so you guys can see what that looks like. Can the body copy go along the bottom side of a very small box? It can go along the bottom, but I would recommend breaking it up into 2 columns so it's not as long of a line length. If that's kind of what you're talking about. Okay. That's okay, no problem. Yeah, so if you have, like, if you don't want it to be in this column and say, or this small column, and you wanted this longer column, I would go up to your object, text frame options, and break it up at least into 2 columns so it's easier to read. Now, obviously, I would set my headline differently if I did that. Okay, so this is all designated here for my table of contents. That's why this is empty. Now, I have to set a body copy style guide for this paragraph style. So I'm going to do select all, so Command A. And there's copy down here I can't see. That's why select all is very important. And go up and make a new paragraph style, and we'll call this body copy. And I'm going to keep this very classic. I'm going to keep it at like Times. And maybe do 11 by 14. We'll see how that goes. The big thing that you want to do for this is you want your baselines to align. So that means no matter how many columns that you have side by side, your baselines are all going to align on every page. And this is where if you had this headline included in with this text box, you would have issues with your headline being included in that. And that's why I said it might be easier just to take this out and have its own text box separately. So how you would align your baselines would be, so you set your font style, your size, your leading. Usually it's a good 20% between your point size and your leading for readability. You know, so that's a good ratio there, but we might have to change it based on this baseline here. So go to indents and spacing, okay? Everybody has to go here for your baselines to align. And see where it says align to a grid right here? We want to do all lines. And we want left alignment. We don't want justified or anything like that. Okay, that looks good. And then we just have to choose body. And see how it's spaced it out really, really far? That's too far apart. So what we need to do, there's just one small change. We need to go up to your InDesign up here on your menu bar. Go to Preferences. And we just have to change your grid here. So go to Grids. If you have your preview set, you'll be able to see this changing here. And what you want to do is you want to change this to a smaller number here. So go up to InDesign Preferences, go to Grids, and I would choose, if you're doing 11 points with 14-point leading, I would do like a 10-point increment for your grid. That looks pretty good. You could probably even do 9. 9 might be even better. That just pulls it together a little bit more, okay? That's really important. So anytime, like say we have, okay, so baselines, and I'll show you how that works. If I took a type tool and I drew out another box here, this is how you would link a box, type boxes. So I just drew an empty type box. And if I select this first type box, see how there's a little red box on the very lower right-hand corner here? That's just telling me you have more type that's not showing because this box isn't big enough. So if you click on that little red box and you click anywhere, it's going to continue a text box. Now, if you wanted it to go into a specific box that you created, just go ahead and click on that box and click right into that type that you just did, type box that you just did. Now, pay attention to this type box. Remember how I said the baselines are aligning? So if I were to draw a margin, so if I were to bring a margin down here, I would see that all these baselines from the left and the right margin align. That's what I'm talking about. So anytime you move this up or down, it's going to snap it to the baseline so that you will never have a weird shift in alignment because that baseline alignment that you just set in your for your body copy. That's the important part. So that's why we did that. So there's no weird shifting where the baselines don't quite align. Okay. Now, anytime you don't want, say, this copy box, you can always delete it. It doesn't delete the copy. It just deletes the box that you created. So very important. So this box needs to continue on page 7. So I would go to page 7 when you're ready and go ahead and draw out a box there based on your grid that you want to do. And once that copy box is created, go back to page 2. And you're going to select that little red box again. Just click it one time. And you'll see kind of like a little icon up here, like a little, like words. You can't really see what they are, but this is telling you, okay, I'm ready to go. Where do you want me to be placed? Go ahead and double click on page 7 and click right into that copy box that you just made. And it's going to continue that onto page 7. There's still copy that still needs to be, looks like a little red box. You don't want to see that little red box. You want to make sure that little red box goes away. So you might need to adjust some things in order for that to happen. For this sake, I'm just going to pull this up just a little bit more. Maybe gain some space there. And maybe pull this up. And we're going to have to do columns of text. How much more do I have? Okay, there's one other thing that I just noticed too that we have to also change, which are the spaces in between your paragraphs. See how there's spaces in between here? That's set with a return. We want to make sure that that's not the case. So let's go ahead and eliminate those spaces. So right before, say this subhead here, we're going to delete that space. Go hit delete. We're going to do the same thing here in between paragraphs. Just delete those spaces. Just one time, hit delete. And we're going to change that in your, it looks like all my copy is showing. Paragraph rules, go ahead and choose body copy again. And we're going to go to indents and spacing. And what we're going to do is we're going to choose a space after, and we're going to set this to, let's do 1.25. And what will happen, and you'll see when you change this, you'll see the spacing on the left side. I don't know if you guys can see. It's actually changing the spacing in between. Let's do 0.125, click OK, and I'll show you what I mean. See how those spaces now are implemented. Now the only thing is you want to make sure right before the subheads, those spaces are deleted, and then you do a shift return so that you have no space after those subheads. That just keeps it consistent. To see how we don't want this space. This is a subhead. Whoops. We don't want this big space in between the subhead and body copy. So we just want to hit delete and then a shift return. And what that does is it gives you a soft return. Okay, so that kind of keeps the spacing very consistent. Same thing here. I'm going to do shift return, so we don't want that much spacing in between our bullet points. Okay, once that's done, now we can set our subheads. So go ahead and select the first subhead. We'll do a paragraph style. So you're going to have lots of paragraph styles, and we're going to name this subhead. subhead. And these can be bigger, you know, and these could be connected to your headline font if it's readable. Oops, Font Universe. So let's do a bold condensed. These can be larger. The only problem with this is you have to make sure that these do not align baseline wise either. So what we want to do is we want to hit none for that, or else that's going to screw you up. Let's see what this looks like. And then we can change the character color too. So we'll do blue. All right, so this is the issue with this. I put a shift return in there, so that's gonna set my style of my body copy after that to that same style. So what we wanna do is we actually wanna do a return, not a soft return. I told you guys wrong there, sorry. And I'm gonna change this back to our body copy. So you just kind of like a lesson learned there. The spacing issue, what we'll have to do is we'll just have to go back, oops, and set that up individually. So, and let me make sure this is all capitalized. So what we'll do is just select your subhead, double click on the subhead style sheet, and then we'll go to your spacings and we'll take out the space after. We'll just set that back to 0. Now, let's go set your other copy here. We have to do the same stuff here too. So what I should have said, instead of hitting that return, go ahead and create your subhead first. And then you can kind of set everything else after that based on that. See how that kind of went back to that? So the subhead, if that happens, just go ahead and hit delete, return. Just do a hard return and then select your body copy. I'm gonna have to put more space in between my subheads here. It's definitely not enough. Delete, return. I'm just putting a hard return. All right, and then this is all being set. Let me pull this down. There we go. And let's do a delete and return so that this is the only thing that's affected when I set that up. Pull this back up. And now I want to change the spacing. So I'm just go ahead, double click on body copy. I'm going to do the spacing again. And I'm going to make this a little bit bigger, so maybe a 0.25. And that just gives me more space after each paragraph so that there's a nice visual pause in between. That was just a little bit too run together the last time I had that. Okay, this column is too big line length-wise, so I'm going to go up to Object, Text Frame Options, and I'm going to set this to 2 at least. So it's 2 columns. I'm going to delete this space before that, so it kind of goes together. And I think, yeah, that kind of sets my copy so it fits perfectly in there. Now my only issue is I will have to put in some images in here, so I have to make sure that my images work. So let's go ahead. I think there's 2 images that need to be plugged in here. Oh, and I want to shift return that so it breaks a little bit better. Any questions on what I've done so far? I mean, that's a lot of information, I know, but pull this up a little bit. There's still some issues with the widows that I need to fix here, but just kind of notice that, you know, I have that nice line down here, that roll line. Ooh, I have to change that color. It's a red line. So you have enough space between your copy and your roll line, and then you have enough space in between your paragraphs. Okay. So I have to bring in my images. Now there's ways that you can do this. You can do this in so many different ways. You can use your ellipse, rectangle, frame tool. So let's say if you want to do a circle, go ahead and draw that out with your, and it has to be your frame tool. And do a Command D for File Place. Find your images in your editorial folder. And go ahead and place that image in. Now what's going to happen is it's bigger than the circle because the circle is kind of small. So we're going to go Object Fitting, Fill Frame Proportionately. Okay. And then you can go ahead and, you know, fit this in how you think works best. If you make it smaller, just make sure you reset the fitting and play around with it. See kind of what works. You can also put a drop shadow in this. Say if you want to do drop shadow, you go up to Objects Effects with that selection and hit drop shadow. I would put a very, you know, subtle one. So I'm going to hit the distance, kind of pull that back a little bit, and then pull the transparency back a little bit so it's not as dark. So I have my distance a little smaller, so 0.025, and my opacity set at almost 20%. So it's not as big of a drop shadow. Now there's another way you can do a square. You don't have to do a circle. You know, you can set your square image up. Hold the Shift key down if you don't want it to be, if you want it to be a perfect square. And then again, Object Fitting, Fill Frame Proportionately. You can also do the whole page, this image. So I just set the frame to be the whole page, Fill Frame Proportionately, and then send to back. So Object, Arrange, Send to back. The only problem with this is it's hard to read, so you're going to have to make this a different transparency. So with that being said, select your image. Let's see here. Where's my transparency? Like go to Appearance. Let's see here. Properties. Sorry about that. Go to your Properties panel under Window with that selected, and then you can change your opacity. I would go no more than 15%, because it always prints darker. So as long as you can kind of see it. So you could do something like that too. You don't necessarily have to use it small. Another thing is you can always use your pen tool, and say you want to do something really cool or like something different, and you wanted to do, say, you know, do your actual custom frame. You just use your pen tool and draw out a line or whatever you want to do, your shape. Let's say I want to do something like that. And once you're done with your shape, you can do a Command D and place your image into that. So it doesn't necessarily have to be, you can move around if you double click on it. Now, obviously it has to be a shape that's going to work for this, but I wanted to show you, you know, ways that you can do that. You can always change the shape by, just like Illustrator, your direct selection tool, you just have to select the individual anchors. Of course, I'm selecting the wrong lines here, hold on. So let's say I wanted to move that to be something different, you could do that. That's kind of cool. Okay, any questions about that? All right, so then page 7, to keep it consistent, you could do like a solid color too. It doesn't have to be an image. So let's say, you know, maybe you just wanted to fill this with a green color. Or maybe taking it from a picture, go to your Properties panel, and I would screen this back, obviously. So maybe like 14, 15%. You could do something like that too. It doesn't have to be, you know, the image. But we have one more image to place in here. So let me show you how you could do that. And since, you know, keep it consistent. If you're doing a specific shape up here, you might want to keep that consistent spacing over here. So, you know, maybe it's just something like this, where you're paste, and this is the other image given to us here. The only thing is, this isn't actually going to work for this. So maybe doing a more vertical one might make sense. So I would do something like this. I don't know if this is an even rectangle, but, or triangle. If it works, it may not work. You know, she might be cut out too much for this. And then the ease of reading of this might be a little tricky. So, you know, in this instance, you know, maybe I would take this out totally, keep that, you know, the way that this is, and maybe just do like a circular picture of her or a square to place her in here individually. Now, if you were to do this individually like this, let's put a drop shadow on her. Let's scale this down a little bit. It's very slight. You need a text wrap because right now the text is behind there. So text wraps are good to that clearance space. So go up to text wrap up under Windows, and you can choose the shape, wraparound shape, if it's a circle, for instance. And then you can increase that clear space. You can see that little blue line appearing is that blue space around it. So anywhere you move this, it's going to adjust based on your text wrap. Now, what you don't want is for this to get too big to where it's kind of heating visually, you know, how to read this. You know, it's making it harder to read, for instance. So, you know, make sure that that's not the case. You can also do wraparound bounding box if you want to do a box shape. See how this is kind of thinning out there. I would say avoid it where it's getting too thin, the copy. And then, you know, also you could do the same thing you did on that first page, only with the second image if you want to keep consistency with that, where maybe it's just the full background. So, you know, it's really kind of up to you design-wise. Just make sure you have enough contrast. You can do something like that. And what's nice about this is, you know, you're not really dealing with having to fit it in if you have a lot of copy. Let me pull this to the right column there. Pull this down a little bit. So it's all about evening things out. Just be aware of widows and orphans. Like, for instance, this is bad to have this how it is here, just because it's hard to read. This is a widow. That's bad to have there. So you'll have to make some adjustments. And how you would do that is, you know, you would either bump this down a line, and when you bump that down a line, that's going to affect all your other lines. See how I kind of added another line in there? That's good. You want at least 3 lines here. That's perfect. And then you don't want a subhead to be the only line on a very bottom column. You want at least 2 lines of text, not 1, 2. So this is perfect. If there's 2, you might need to adjust some of your copy. If there's a widow, you know, let's see if I have any instances of a widow. Looks good. I actually don't have any widows, but if you had, oh, right here, this is a widow right here. 1 word on the last line, you need to do something where it shifts your copy so that you have at least 2 words on the last line. So I would put, in this instance, my text box right in front of this word could, and do a shift return just to bounce that down. Shift return is a soft return. Now you can go in now and do some detail work. For instance, this bullet copy, you can create a paragraph style for that. So you can go up to styles, paragraph style, and we can do a new paragraph style for this and just type bold bullet point copy. And just make this bold. Now I have a return in there, so that's going to be tricky. Just like I did before, to set this back to where it was. There we go. And then it makes that copy bold. I think I'm going to make this a little bit more transparent. Do 15%. There we go. You just want to make sure you have enough contrast for your type. Oops. All right, any questions about anything that we went over so far? We're going to be wrapping it up here. The only thing I wanted to fix before you guys go is the rule line above the master page on the right-hand side. I don't know why, but it's red instead of blue. I don't know if you guys can see that. So let me go ahead and change that. Blue. I think it's pulling from the other. Okay. My character color. Yeah, see it's pulling from that. It's going to make that other, it's going to make that blue though. That's fine. I'll have to make that separate, but I'm going to keep it consistent. I'm going to make it all blue. If I wanted to change maybe the page number, I would just create a separate character style for that, totally. So that's red. But for now, we'll just keep it as such. And we can go over that on Wednesday if you want. But you can see I have nice grid structure. I have my area over here for my table of contents. My folio is nicely set. I have good alignment. I have good spacing here. I could probably pull this down a little bit. It's even. Good hierarchy is set up where I know that this is the headline, this is the subhead, this is the byline, this is the body copy. You could do something where maybe the first paragraph is a little bigger and typeface, a little different, maybe a drop cap. It's completely up to you, but it would have to be a separate paragraph style set for your first paragraph. And I can show you that on Wednesday if you want to. Subheads are emphasized. Spacing is nice, not too much spacing after the subhead, but enough in between paragraphs. And it continues nicely with the signifier so that the reader knows from page 2 to 7 where they're looking. It's consistent. My 2 images are placed in there nicely. I have enough contrast. This is not too long line length-wise. My baselines are all aligned. I don't have any widows or orphans. And everything looks pretty readable and spaced out consistently. So that's kind of what I'm going to be grading on your work on. I'm going to be looking at all those small details. Okay, when you're done, what you can do is you're going to save this out as a PDF. So go ahead and do smallest file size and save it to your desktop. Click save. And then see where it says range. So we're going to do page 2, 7. 2, 7 with range selected. And select export, click OK, just tell me about my transparency. And then what I would suggest is open up your PDF so that you know it looks good. If there's any issues, you can correct it. But definitely view it before submitting it. Let me open this up and I'll show you here. So this is the PDF that I created. So this is page 2 and page 7. Now they're just 2 pages, so that's kind of why they're showing up like that. That's the PDF. Now, what I want you to do and what the instructions tell you to do is you need to also save it as a zipped file. You need to package it. So this is the important part. So pay attention. So go back to your InDesign file. Go File when you're done. When you're completely done and saving it, go File, Package. And this is just a summary of, what your file contains, all the fonts, links, images. That's fine. Click Package on the very lower right-hand corner. And you can include your PDF there too. I'll just have to skip through all your blank pages. But if you do the range and you don't want to include the PDF and say you just saved it out like I showed you just now where it's on your desktop, you can pull that into your folder. So I'll exclude it for now. I don't really need that. But everything else should be selected. I'm going to save it to my desktop and click Package. And it's going to package all the images, all the fonts used, everything except for the PDF because I excluded that. Hold on one second. And this is the folder that it put it in. So you'll see the InDesign file, the document fonts, and the links. I'll just pull that PDF that I created separately. I'll just drag and drop it into that same folder. So it's included if you don't include it. And then this folder, you're going to zip it. So you're going to either do a control click and hit compress, or you're going to select the file and do, let's see here, the same thing as file compress. And that's going to be the zip file that you're going to include in your submission. I don't know if you guys can see that. Did you see that? So you'll just do a command click and hit compress, and it creates the zip file. All right. And we'll be kind of going over your assessment one on Wednesday. But if you have any questions and want to share your work for assignment one on Wednesday, you can do that if you have any, issues. You're welcome. I know I went very quickly. What we can do on Wednesday is I can just do like a review. I do want to show you that first paragraph change too if you want to try something different. And then if you have any questions, we can open it up for critique at the end. All right. Okay, well, it looks like we're a little bit past time and my battery's almost dead here on my computer. So I'm going to wrap it up. Misty, you had a question? For those of you who want to, obviously leave, you can. Thank you for meeting up with me, and hopefully I'll see you on Wednesday.